It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Coming up, Pride or Prejudice will go inside the flagger movement. That's the name being adopted by the growing number of people putting up flags in towns across the country. They say pride in their country is nothing to be ashamed of and reject claims that they are sowing division.
Ultimately, what the purpose of this is bring out that patriotism in other people.
A special report on the way from our social affairs correspondent, Becky Johnson. Also tonight, Prince Harry donates more than £1 million of his own money to charity. The Duke making the donation to a Children in Need project in Nottingham on the second day of his visit to the UK. Plus, I speak to the mother of Jack O'Sullivan, who went missing after a night out in Bristol 18 months ago. Now, an anonymous benefactor is offering a £100,000 reward for information on his whereabouts. And they're off. We'll find out why horse racing is going on strike tomorrow, the industry's first walkout in modern history. Well, that's come and much more on the UK Tonight. But we start tonight in the Middle East. Israel killing a number of Hamas officials during a strike on the Qatari capital, Doha. The attack has been condemned by Qatar, which described it as a blatant violation of international law. And Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer said the strike risks a further escalation across the region. Speaking earlier, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there can be no immunity for Hamas leaders.
At noon today, I convened the heads of Israel's security organizations and authorized a surgical precision strike on the terrorist chiefs of Hamas. These are the same terrorist chiefs who planned, launched, and celebrated the horrific massacres of October 7th. At the beginning of the war, I promised that Israel would reach those who perpetrated this horror. And today, Israel and I have kept that promise.
Let's join our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons. Adam, what now?
Yeah, well, that is the question, is what happens next is, I think, worrying a lot of people across this entire region about what precedent this has set and about who knew what when. So if we sort of track back a bit, this morning, I don't think anyone woke up and thought, I bet this is the day when Israel launches airstrikes against Qatar, but that's what happened. The Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, saying that the catalyst for making the decision to go was an attack that happened yesterday morning where 6 Israelis were killed by a couple of gunmen who came in from the West Bank Palestinians. Hamas this morning responsibility for that attack. There's no evidence that they actually were involved in it, but they claimed responsibility. But even by yesterday evening, Netanyahu had apparently made the decision to go ahead with this attack. So it's been weeks in the preparation, potentially months. He said this was the right moment to do it. Hamas leaders were in Doha, that was no secret, but they were there preparing the ground for negotiations around a ceasefire in Gaza. As has happened so often before, these negotiations have been on and off in Doha and also in Cairo since basically weeks after October the 7th. So the fact that Hamas leaders were there was not sort of classified information. Clearly, Israeli jets flew the significant distance, launched these strikes, but failed, it would seem, according to our sources, to kill any members of the Hamas Leadership Committee, but they did, we understand, kill 5 other people who were part of that group. So what happens next? What is the reaction? Well, Qatar has condemned this as a criminal act. There's been condemnation, of course, from Saudi Arabia, from Syria, from other Middle Eastern nations, also from the United Kingdom, from the United Nations, and even, you have to say, from the United States, normally the most steadfast defender of everything that Israel does, even they expressing disappointment about this. And that's the one thing that will worry Mr. Netanyahu. He doesn't really care about most global reaction. He does care about what Donald Trump thinks. And all this happens at a time when the military operation in Gaza is stepping up, the Israeli military is beginning to attack and encircle Gaza City. There are 1 million people in there. They're telling them to get out, to displace. Tensions increasing over on the West Bank. And some of Mr. Netanyahu's closest advisors, closest colleagues in the cabinet, telling him to go tougher, go harder, and go stronger. At the moment, Israel is a considerably more tense and anxious and uncertain country than it was even 48 hours ago.
Adam, thank you. Adam Parsons following events for us from Jerusalem. Well, we understand the White House was given advance notice of that strike on Doha and warned the Qataris ahead of the attack. Donald Trump's press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, told reporters earlier that the US regrets the strike on a sovereign nation. And the president has assured Qatar that it won't happen again.
The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack. President Trump wants all of the hostages in Gaza and the bodies of the dead released, and this war to end now. President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. The president also spoke to the Emir and Prime Minister of Qatar and thanked them for their support and friendship to our country. He assured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil.
Let's bring in our US correspondent Mark Stone, who is at the White House for us this evening. And Mark, the White House giving an assurance to Qatar that this won't happen again, while expressing disappointment because, of course, the backdrop to this attack was the appearance that a ceasefire was close.
Yeah, I mean, very much a fence-sitting statement there, read out by Caroline Leavitt. I don't think, I think what's important to stress is that although, as Adam was saying, Prime Minister Netanyahu does listen to what Donald Trump says. Perhaps he's the only person who he listens to. But if you listen to Donald Trump, he has explicitly said over many months now, and I'm paraphrasing, but words to the effect of Prime Minister Netanyahu will do what he needs to do. And that is implicitly a green light for Israel to do what it wants to do. Now, I don't think that necessarily meant bombing an American ally, well, the land of an American ally, Qatar. But it's clear that the president, it's clear to me at least, that the president doesn't seem to have full control of what is happening here. He has said almost in the same breath that Israel will do what it wants to do, but then also say that he believes a ceasefire and peace in Gaza is very, very close. So we didn't get any more clarity from Caroline Leavitt there on quite what the president's position is. Remember, in the past, he has been deeply critical of Israel. When Israel appeared to roll over a ceasefire that he had implemented in Iran by continuing to bomb Iran, the president said on the South Lawn that the two sides, including Israel, don't know what the F they're doing. So he does get irritated with Israel, but I don't get the sense that right now he's particularly bothered by what has happened in Doha.
And Mark, another big story today that's been somewhat overshadowed by events in Doha, Lord Mandelson and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
This is a huge story, honestly, and it raises very serious questions about Lord Mandelson's judgment. Of course, a titan of British politics for many, many decades, former Deputy Prime Minister, former Northern Ireland Secretary, and now, of course, he is Britain's ambassador here in Washington, D.C. Now, we know that he had a relationship, a friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. That much has been in the public domain for some time. But just how close that relationship was not clear until the release late last night of a book, a compilation of letters, anecdotes, photographs from the friends of Jeffrey Epstein. This was a book put together in 2003 by Ghislaine Maxwell, his girlfriend and co-conspirator. She, of course, now in jail. Epstein is dead. This book, I've read parts of it, I've read most of it. It is sordid, it is deeply, deeply sexual in nature. Given what we now know about Epstein, the paedophile, it is really quite extraordinary to read what is in this book. Letters from the likes of Bill Clinton, photographs of Epstein with very, very young women, girls, some very sexually explicit text as well, written material. Now, within this book, there are other letters that are not sexual in nature, and one of them is from Lord Mandelson, and it says things like, once upon a time, an intelligent, sharp-witted man they call mysterious came into my life. It goes on to say I would spend many hours just waiting for him. That phrase accompanied by a photograph of Lord Mandelson in a pair of swimming trunks looking out of a window. It goes on to say at the end of this, I think perhaps the most unusual, you might say, part of it, going into the detail of their friendship. It says, but wherever he is in the world, he remains my best pal. Those are the words of Lord Mandelson about Jeffrey Epstein. Now, as I say, what this does, I think, is it shows just how close they were as friends. Important to stress, this was before the allegations of Epstein's antics, sexual antics, were exposed. That was 3 years after these words by Lord Mandelson were written. But the victims of Jeffrey Epstein have always maintained, and did as recently as this week on Capitol Hill, that anyone associated closely with Jeffrey Epstein around about that time must have known what sort of a man he was. And that, I think, is why this is uncomfortable for Lord Mandelson. We've spoken to him over the course of the past few months. I've spoken to the embassy today. They have referred us only back to a clip that Lord Mandelson gave us back in May. Have a listen to this.
My knowledge of him is something that I regret. I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
Why did you have an association with him? Because he was in jail at the time.
Why did many people meet him? He was a prolific networker, and I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
I should say that I know that Lord Mandelson was very unhappy with that questioning by James Matthews back in May. And to add to that, back in February, the Financial Times, before he became ambassador, did an interview with him. And they asked him about his relationship with Lord Mandelson. And his response on the record to the Financial Times was that they should F off. So he is sensitive about this. He's not spoken to anyone about it today. The Prime Minister's spokesman says that Keir Starmer has not spoken to him, but it raises serious questions, and it's massively awkward as well. I mean, Lord Mandelson is at the forefront of the relationship between the US and the UK. He's had a very successful tenure so far, driving that trade agreement a few months ago. And of course, the state visit comes next week, a state visit which now has 3 characters where the degrees of separation with Lord Mandelson are awkward. The optics are awkward. You have Donald Trump. He is in this book as well with a letter that he allegedly wrote. He denies that. You have Peter Mandelson. And of course, you have the King as well, whose own brother, his relationship with Epstein and with Ghislaine Maxwell is well known.
Mark, thank you very much. Mark Stone there with the latest from Washington. Now, over the past few weeks, English and British flags have started to appear in towns across the country. It's spreading every day and has now crossed the border, with saltires appearing in Scottish towns. Those behind the campaign have become known as flaggers. They say their actions are driven by patriotism and pride. Others disagree, saying that the displays are racially charged and only serve to sow division in communities. Our social affairs correspondent Becky Johnson spent an evening with a group of flaggers in Lichfield and has this special report.
Patriotism and pride, or nationalism and prejudice. Flags are going up in towns and cities across England.
I want to be proud of my own country.
But is this also to do with immigration?
It goes hand in hand, really.
Right, there's Old St George.
Here in Lichfield, we followed this group, led by Ross, for an evening. Why are you doing this?
I'm incredibly patriotic. I love our flag.
So have you always put flags up, or did it just start with the immigration?
It's acceptable now. And ultimately, what the purpose of this is bring out that patriotism in other people, right? Yeah.
From early on, we heard plenty of support. But it wasn't long before this.
Sorry that you feel so
Shameful behaviour.
Not everyone happy to see the flags in their town.
Why can't you be proud?
I am proud.
It's not about being proud.
I am proud.
It's about being
But
divisive.
we're
That's what
absolutely
it's about.
tripping over from patriotism to an overt display of nationalism. A national flag can be patriotic. It's also a symbol over the years. Rallying round a flag is a central point for in times of, in periods when we feel left out, right? And when that happens, what we get is cliques established, and they can be the beginnings of a deeper division.
That's your opinion, unfortunately.
But is this all timed because of all the concern about immigration?
Yes, my personal stance on it is yes. This is us saying, you're in our country, right? This is what we stand for. You bow to this flag how we do, right? And you shouldn't be doing illegal things and for example, raping the women and committing crimes, which we don't agree with. Right. Are you good on this yet?
For at least one of this group, it's all pretty new. You're wearing the flag?
I am wearing the flag. I want us to wear it proudly, like the Americans do.
Octavia has only been doing this for a matter of days.
She bumped into us the other day, and now she's a full-fledged flagger.
How did you get involved with this?
This is so random. I was walking through and from visiting a friend, and I saw him putting up the flags, and I genuinely wondered why, because I saw them everywhere, and I'm a bit, you know, my social media is not on the political side, so I was curious, and he kind of explained to me, like, we're protecting people of Britain, we're spreading awareness, that is literally all, and I was really happy to get involved. I got risk of being homelessness before, and these people are coming here and they're getting a free hotel, 5-star.
Pretty more like 3-star.
Well,
does that make a difference to you?
Not really.
In how you view the situation?
Not really, because they're still getting that free handout.
I've got the ladder for you, mate. Again, just make sure you clear it well above that sign. Thank you, sir.
As they carry on, this passerby clear why he supports them.
King St George in my heart I pray. King St George in my heart, King English till the day I die.
Fantastic.
No surrender, no surrender, no surrender to the boats coming over.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for that performance.
Love it, love it.
We love it.
We love it.
As we move around the town, I'm keen to find out more about Ross, who's 27, Lichfield born and bred, and installs floors for a living. Are you a member of a political party?
No.
Are you part of a political movement?
Well, if you want to call this a political movement, then yes.
So would you say this is entirely grassroots?
Yeah. I mean, if you were going to associate me with any political movement, I mean, these flags here represent September 13th, the rally that's going on in London, Unite the Kingdom. And
Do you support Tommy Robinson?
Yes. Massively.
OK, so are you affiliated with him?
I was with him last night, yes.
You were with him last night?
He gave me these flags.
Right. So it's not really grassroots?
Well, it's your opinion.
The rest of the group head on, but we carry on talking about when he formed his views on immigration.
OK, so it was about a year ago and Labour had just got into power, right? And you saw all the riots that were going on, and I was oblivious. I didn't know what all this was about. But then I saw the people getting locked up for Facebook posts, and I thought, that is absolutely absurd. Anyway, I got home, wrote a song about basically I'm going over to Poland because it's safer over there. You know, I spoke about the immigration, there's no women and kids. And I also said we're patriotic, but we're not racist. That was one of the key lines in that song, right? So anyway, I released it. It got a lot of attention online. And then I went down the rabbit hole and I started researching it myself, not what the mainstream media was telling me. It was more so people's own accounts reporting on Twitter. Watch out for this car. Don't fancy a cocktail, do you? Look at that, lovely.
So some people would say that you've been radicalised online.
Some people may say that, but some people could say anything.
Do you feel like...
No, not at all.
But further down the street, we meet Bob, who's just not convinced by Ross.
There's nothing to be ashamed that, like, we're English or British. It's just that they're, like, how people use the flag to represent themselves and represent the people that, like, they're, like, the group that they're with. And that's what causes the issue.
So it's the timing that some people
Everybody seems to be saying it's
have
the
an
timing.
issue with.
Yeah, with obviously the immigration side of things. I get it, right? You could paint it in that respect, as we've had a talk with other people earlier. but it's not a racist thing just to be wanting to look after your people.
Do you agree with him that it's not a racist thing, or?
No, I mean, I don't. Yeah, it's definitely like it's not a racist thing to present or the British or English flag. It's just how people have used it recently over the times. It's become quite extreme.
Do you think it is being used as a racist symbol?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I do. Yeah.
At the pub, we find out one of these men is a local Labour councillor and former Lichfield mayor.
You can understand why people are doing it. It does come across intimidating, in my opinion. Something needs to be done because it's starting to impact a lot of people.
So should they be taken down?
I think so, for the motives, personally, because it's not nice to see when you see the people putting them up as well. It's just a little bit too far in my head.
Don't you think, I mean, your Labour, if the government started saying these flags need to come down, that would put them in a lot of trouble with a lot of people?
So would a lot.
The Prime Minister has said he's proud of our flag and that he has one in his home, but that using it to divide devalues it. This couple don't see any problem. When you see the flags going up around the town, you think that's lovely?
I'm pleased to see them, because you see them in the Mall when there's coronation or whatever, and you think, yes, I feel very patriotic.
You say you're just patriotic, that's it. Do you also think about immigration? I mean, the timing of this comes at a time when
I think there's too much immigration because we just haven't got room.
And when you see the flags around, do you combine that issue, that concern about immigration, with your patriotism?
No.
Or you see them as two separate issues?
Yes, I do.
Separate?
Very definitely, yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I can't see the two combining, really, but perhaps we're just very old-fashioned.
There's nothing wrong with showing the English flag.
No.
We've been here a couple of hours, and it's really interesting, the range of views that these flags are bringing out in people. Some people are seeing them as purely a symbol of patriotism. For others, they really are a symbol of division and racism, particularly because they're being put up at a time when immigration is being so hotly debated. And these a visible reminder that debate goes on, with strong feelings on both sides. Becky Johnson, Sky News, Lichfield.
Police say a woman has died while trying to cross the channel in a small boat. Kent Police saying the woman was airlifted to shore just after 1 o'clock this afternoon, where she was pronounced dead. An investigation is now underway. Let's bring in Sky's Rachel Venables, who has been following this story for us today. Rachel, what more can you tell us about what happened to this woman?
Well, I think it's just another example, isn't it, of how dangerous, how perilous this journey is. Remember the English Channel, that gap of water between France and Dover and England is one of the busiest and most perilous shipping lanes in the world. Yet we know that every single year tens of thousands of people are piling into these small boats and trying to make that journey. And very sadly, another person has lost their life, this time a woman. We don't have any more details about her age, about where she's from. But we did have this statement coming through from Kent Police a little earlier today saying that at around 1 o'clock, they were made aware by the Coast Guard of an incident. A migrant boat, they say, or a small boat getting into trouble. One woman, they say, airlifted back to shore where she was sadly pronounced dead, and officers now conducting inquiries as they normally do, carrying out investigations to try to work out the circumstances, they say, surrounding this incident. We'd already heard today that the Coast Guard had sent out a number of vessels from the Border Force, RNLI lifeboats as well. There was helicopters overhead in response to small boat activity happening this morning. And certainly 2 vessels were seen on the tracker heading out to this incident, which was around 10 minutes or so from the Kent coast. Back on land, you also had ambulances waiting for the people who'd been rescued, and a number of people were seen arriving at the Port of Dover at around 3 o'clock. Some of them included children being led to safety, effectively being led to the UK. We've also had a statement from the government. They've said they're shocked and saddened by what has happened. Their immediate thoughts with those who've been affected, but they also chose to speak about this tragedy, underlining, they say, the terrible dangers of small boat crossings, and they say they will continue to do everything they can to prevent what they've called callous criminals exploiting vulnerable people. But as we know, this is a major pressure from the government, as immigration is one of the big things that they're coming under fire for. We know on Saturday, 30,000 people people had made the journey this year alone. That's a record number, huge rise year on year, and additional pressure really for the brand new Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, who said she'll do whatever it takes to stop small boat crossings.
OK, Rachel, thank you. Rachel Venables with the latest on that story. Thank you. Well, let's just remind you what's happening here on Sky News tomorrow night. We're hosting the immigration debate. It's happening in Birmingham, and you can join in if you scan the QR code coming up on your screen. It's going to be hosted by Sky's Trevor Phillips, who will be joined by representatives of the government and opposition parties to debate this hot topic, this issue. Head to our website, skynews.com, if you'd like to take part. It's happening at 7 o'clock tomorrow night, and at 8 o'clock, I'll have a special edition of the UK Tonight live from the venue in Birmingham, unpacking everything that we hear in that debate and talking to members of the studio audience about their views. That's coming up tomorrow night on Sky News. Still to come here on the UK Tonight, I'm going to be joined by the mother of missing student Jack O'Sullivan. This is as a mystery benefactor offers a £100,000 reward for information on his whereabouts.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's Senior Ireland Correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace. The end of the political stalemate, the start of a new chapter for Northern Ireland. Catholics and Protestants now facing the same threat.
If we both contract COVID-19, religion's nothing.
Sky News, the full story first.
Now, next tonight, an update to a story that we brought you last year. Student Jack Sullivan, who went missing in March 2024. Last seen after going to a house party in the Hotwells area of Bristol. More than 18 months later, an anonymous donor has offered a £100,000 reward for any information that could lead to finding Jack. Well, I'm joined now by Jack's mum, Catherine, who I spoke to pretty much a year ago now, after Jack's disappearance. First of all, how are you, Catherine? Because this is still an open police investigation. You're still trying to find Jack.
Yeah, that's right. Well, it's hard to sum up how we are. We're getting by, is the only way I can describe it. It's really, really hard, and it's getting harder. But we're not giving up. So somehow, from somewhere, the strength continues to come, because we have to do this, you know, we have to find Jack, so, yeah.
You're not giving up, and you don't want other people to either, and that includes the police and the public. A mystery benefactor has come forward who wants to remain anonymous, who has provided you with this large sum of money, £100,000. This has certainly catapulted it back into the public consciousness. It's back, you know, trending on social media. Talk to me about how that came about and what you hope it's going to do.
Yes, well, it was a total shock. Somebody contacted me personally, put this offer to us, which we initially were really shocked by, and just it was really hard to know what to do to start with. Do we believe it? Is it real? Is it genuine? But once it was all verified, we were blown away by the generosity that somebody could do that. So it's really, really spurred us to push this forward again.
Yeah. And the hope is it will lead to information, but in the short term, it's got the story back out there. It's got the pictures of Jack back out there, particularly that CCTV footage, which was the last time that you knew of Jack's whereabouts. That was something that was missed by police at the time. It was found, as you talked to me about in our last interview, something that you as a family found when you asked to see the footage. I know when we spoke, you were unhappy, should we say, with how the police has handled the disappearance of Jack. And the police did make a voluntary referral to the Independent Office for Police Conduct to ensure openness and transparency. The IOPC concluding the complaint was suitable for an investigation and a full review, and it related to several areas, a number of which we discussed before. One complaint that was upheld was the fact that Jack's case wasn't placed onto the Missing People's Charity database at the earliest reasonable opportunity. While it's not compulsory, the police say, it's not a compulsory obligation, they fully accept the learning there. That was something that you felt should have been done quicker because, again, it gets Jack out there and it gets him onto this missing persons database.
Yes, well, unfortunately, it's a very repetitive story. So many things didn't happen when they should have happened. And, you know, assumptions were made very early on by the police. And that's based on their opinion and wasn't based on any
Remind
fact.
us of the assumption.
So the assumption that we were told on the evening that Jack was first reported missing was that the police firmly believed that Jack had fallen into the river in Bristol. Somebody rang us up and told us that on the telephone. And days later, that what they were working CCTV from proved that that wasn't Jack at all. But we really felt that narrative stuck and has continued to. It's you know, it's really we've had to sit and listen to that on so many occasions. And again, it's, you know, it's based on zero evidence. Jack is not seen. The last sighting of him near any water. You know, he's in the vicinity of water, but nothing's ever been found. You know. And also, someone's come forward and presented us with their findings on if somebody did fall into the water, exactly what would happen and where they'd be found. And they also can't provide a case of that ever happening before. So if Jack that had happened, he'd probably be the first person in history. So for us, that really told us a lot and has really spurred us to keep going because we really firmly believe Jack is out there on land somewhere. You know, so I'm not naive to think that something bad hasn't happened, but that doesn't mean to say he's gone. And I certainly won't accept that until somebody provides evidence to tell me that's the case.
Yeah. Your frustration as a family and as a mum is understandable in terms of if the police are, you feel the police are following just one line of inquiry.
Yes.
As you said to you, Jack walked away from that house party that night and you just don't know what happened.
No.
There could be 100 different scenarios, but for you, you feel that the police have just stuck to that one. When we spoke as well, it's a frustration I've heard so many times from families affected by missing people and other scenarios is that mobile phone data. It's really hard to get access to that as a family, whether it's from the phone company provider or from the police themselves. Remind me of what was happening there and where you got to with, because Jack had his phone on him that night.
That's right. You know, Jack messaged me to say he was on his intention of how he was going to get home. We know the phone was still working a long time after his last sighting. So for us, that was a huge piece of information to be followed through on. The phone was actually in my name, so the contract, which enabled me to try and get access to the data, the replacement phone SIM.
And what kind of data were you looking for in terms of location, whether the SIM card had been removed?
Yes, all those things really. And we were told by the police that the provider that we were under didn't supply that information. We subsequently found out that that wasn't true. And again, that was such a vital piece of information, because if the phone SIM had been taken out of Jack's phone, I can't imagine he'd be doing that on the side of the road, trying to get a taxi home. So these were really important points, which we felt were just brushed aside. But we made progress eventually with the phone data, and the provider, actually, I spoke to someone and they said, under normal circumstances, we wouldn't do this because we deal with the police. But the comment was, common sense must prevail here. You're Jack's parents and you need to know where he is. And they were amazing, you know, they really helped. Unfortunately, time had passed, and that was the key to everything really here, with the CCTV, with the data. Too much time had passed to make a significant difference.
Yeah, to make use of that information. Well, I said, Catherine, sadly, you are not any further in your quest to find Jack at this stage, but, you know, this reward being offered puts it back out there in the public, gets it on social media, gets Jack's name and his face that we can see there on the screen out there for anyone who may have information. Catherine, thank you so much for coming in to see us again. And once again, I wish you the best of luck in your search for Jack, because, as you said, until you find out what's happened to him, you can't give up hope, nor
Absolutely
should you.
not. No, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Avon and Somerset police, the police force investigating the disappearance of Jack, have told us this. Throughout our investigation, we have always taken an evidence-led, open-minded and transparent approach with the shared aim of finding Jack. We have carried out extensive inquiries, including searches of land and water, following up on public contacts, reviewing and re-reviewing all CCTV and other available footage, contacting drivers and taxi companies travelling in the area, and conducting a thorough examination of all digital data. We've had the support of more than 30 different police teams and partner organisations during the investigation, and we have sought the very best expert and independent advice, support and guidance from nationally recognised experts, including from the National Crime Agency. Despite this, we have sadly not been able to find Jack, and we fully recognise the devastating impact his disappearance continues to have on his family and loved ones. They go on to say, we have regularly engaged with the family throughout the investigation around any digital opportunities which could aid us in finding Jack, and we have explored these when they have presented themselves. The search for Jack continues, as does the police investigation by Avon and Somerset Police. Still to come here on the UK Tonight. The Duke of Sussex makes a donation to a Children in Need project on the second day of his visit to the UK. We'll have the latest for you from Nottingham. And all the details as the Director General of the BBC is grilled by MPs. That's on the way. Prince Harry has made a personal donation of more than £1 million to a Children in Need project in Nottingham, supporting young people who have been affected by violence. The Duke of Sussex is on a 4-day trip to the UK, carrying out a string of visits, many of which are the kind of thing he used to visit with his brother. Our rock correspondent Rhiannon Mills has more.
An industrial estate in Nottingham couldn't have felt further from the glamour of California. But Harry was clearly back to see friends. And despite a few years of negative headlines, the crowd also pleased to have him back.
And I really hope that the family reach out to him in this visit and mend those rifts.
Ever since he left for America, he's stayed in touch privately with the community recording studio and other groups working to keep young people away from violent crime. They've also been particularly loyal to Harry, so it felt like he was, in a way, paying them back. Announcing a huge £1.1 million donation from his own pocket.
Violence impacting young people, particularly knife crime, continues to devastate lives, cut futures short and leave families in grief. I've been committed to this work for over a decade, and sadly the urgency today is even greater than when I first began. We cannot, we must not, and we will not look away.
After everything that's happened, and despite now living in the US, this felt like a renewed commitment from him to the UK. Trevor Rose says his support still means everything.
He still asks clearly, what are we doing? What do we need? What is this? What kind of support are we getting? And what are the issues? The one thing has been very clear, the connection amongst the young people, amongst the group, the staff that we work with, has been like, yo, it's Harry, it's Harry. You know what I mean? He's coming to check in on us. It's like a big brother feeling.
Infatuated by someone I thought I never would. As he got stuck in, you couldn't help but wonder if this is the half-in, half-out raw life that Harry has always wanted. Other family members, of course, don't have that choice. Prince William was actually down in London doing a very similar type of visit, with an event in Lambeth focused on what his homelessness initiative is trying to do more specifically for young people.
Today has got a real sense of déjà vu about it. It is so similar to all the engagements that I've done with Prince Harry right here over the years. And that is, in a way, hard to square with everything that's happened over the last 5 years. The fact that he's able to now go and do this again. And we now just wait to see what exactly is going to happen over the next 2 days.
And Harry's style and what's happening with his family means we always have to be ready for the unexpected. Rhiannon Mills, Sky News.
The boss of the BBC has been telling MPs we may see more things coming out after a series of scandals at the broadcaster. Director General Tim Davie admitted it had been a tough period for the corporation while being grilled by the Culture, Media and Sport Select Committee today. Our arts and entertainment correspondent Katie Spencer has been taking a look.
It's been quite a year for the BBC, not really in a good way, with Director General Tim Davie having to steer the corporation through dramas involving Glastonbury, Greg Wallace and Gaza.
I think we can all agree that it's been a fairly bumpy summer.
Opening with an understatement, the chair of the Culture Select Committee, which had summoned the Director General and BBC Chair Samir Shah to Parliament for a grilling. Where would they even start? Well, how about the fallout from Greg Wallace's inappropriate behaviour and what it means for talent on the channel?
We're not mucking around now. If you're not living the values, it is clear you leave the BBC or there are consequences.
Leading to a heated exchange over whether there are any other skeletons in the BBC's closet.
You can tell us how many you've got.
Well, all I would say, no, I don't. Because in terms of, I think that's...
You need to know the scale of this problem and whether it still exists.
I think a running commentary of what's coming in on the day and what's not.
It's not a running commentary. This is a parliamentary sitting and you're being held to account.
We have dismissed people who are not living our values. That's non-negotiable.
Spiky to say the least, and he refused to be drawn on whether he misread the situation at Glastonbury when he arrived on site and was told about punk anarchist Bob Villan's on-stage Israeli soldier death chants.
I don't think I misread it. When I heard about it about 5 o'clock, the performance was well done by then. And at that point, I knew absolutely that it was an anti-Semitic broadcast. So my decision was, and to get that off on demand. The BBC made a very significant mistake, very significant in broadcasting that.
Then there's its handling of Gaza. Its editorial guidelines called into question when it emerged a documentary it commissioned failed to disclose its child narrator was the son of a Hamas official.
It was a perception of impartiality of the narrator.
Perception, so that's not even partiality, it's a perception. It does feel like you're bowing to some sort of pressure with this war.
I want to defend the newsroom and the journalists. I don't think they're shaped by fear. And I don't think they're shaped by individual bits of lobbying. What they're shaped by, if I may, is our editorial guidelines.
A couple of months ago, Tim Davie was christened with the somewhat dubious nickname of Teflon Tim by one tabloid newspaper over how he seems to be impervious to storms of controversy, with his leadership remaining intact. The question is whether this performance is enough to silence those critics who argue he simply has to go, with one too many scandals happening under his watch. Katie Spencer, Sky News.
Still to come on the UK tonight, and they're off. Find out why the British horse racing industry is going on strike tomorrow. And Ange Postecoglou back in management just 3 months after being sacked by Tottenham.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. I'm ready. Are you? Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
A lifeline for millions of people living on both sides of one of the most volatile international borders.
It's dams like these that have become inflection points between the two nuclear-armed neighbours, which could potentially lead to water wars in the future. A terror attack has shattered the peace and tranquility of Kashmir. At least 26 people have been killed and as many injured when militants fired upon them. I'm Neville Lazarus and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
The old and young, all weary after being trapped for days as the worst floods have hit Kerala in a century.
3 days we are on a rooftop. They have no food, nothing.
The roads have been inundated. The only way out is to get people by boat. There have been reported deaths and many injuries, several critical.
Many families will grapple with the unimaginable loss of one of the worst disasters in India's aviation history.
The spiraling violence between two nuclear-armed neighbours that harbour decades of hostility just seems to be getting worse by the day.
Garbage dumps like this not only threaten the lives of millions of people, but also pose a deadly consequence on the environment and climate.
It is a source of death, decay, disease and pollution for hundreds of thousands of people living in its shadows.
There is so much disease because of this garbage. Sometimes it's so difficult to just breathe.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Over the next 45 days, an estimated 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna. It's a real kaleidoscope of people from all walks of life.
Hello, welcome back. You're watching the UK Tonight. An update now on a story we brought you last week. You may remember I spoke to Yogesh Alekari, who was on the adventure of a lifetime. He was riding round the world on his motorbike, his beloved motorbike. He called it his home. Well, that was before his trip came to a rather abrupt halt. His bike and all his possessions stolen in broad daylight in Nottingham, meaning he couldn't complete the second half of the trip. He was due to head out to Africa after leaving the UK. Well, now police investigating that theft have made an arrest. Nottinghamshire police saying this evening that an 18-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of theft of a motorcycle and other offences. The police say they are still trying to track down the bike and Yogesh's belongings. The horse racing industry is set to go on strike tomorrow in protest against government proposals to raise the betting tax on racing. The British Horse Racing Authority warns an increase could cost the sport £330 million over 5 years. It will be the first time the sport has voluntarily refused to race in its history. Our sports correspondent Rob Harris has more.
For a government losing ground, a chancellor with little room to manoeuvre, the races have become a budget battleground. The sport raising the stakes over a proposed rise on betting taxes by going on strike, calling off Wednesday's entire day of races.
For there to be no racing for a day, it's a big deal. It's like taking a Jenga block out of the pile and not expecting it to fall down. I mean, inevitably, if you take out the base, the rest crumbles.
The British Horse Racing Authority claims more than 2,500 jobs are at risk in the first year alone if the government pursues plans to harmonise tax on gambling online into a single rate. It would see the 15% tax paid by bookmakers on racing rise to the 21% paid by online casinos and games.
This is an existential threat for the sport. Our modelling, which has been done independently, tells us that over 5 years, the revenue impact into the sport would be circa £330 million.
Why should horse racing be a special case?
Racecourses are often the focal point of local towns and communities across the country, as are the training facilities.
The Betting and Gaming Council has warned the strike will cause unnecessary disruption to punters. But the reality of the racing industry is felt by those up at dawn every day. Sarah Guest has risen from stable lass to assistant trainer.
It's a struggle, especially in the smaller yards. We're really sort of noticing the hit. I mean, the owners, they're coming to us every day and saying, why are we committing to this? Why are we paying this money every month to keep our horses in training? And there's nothing coming back to them.
It is unprecedented, racing choosing to shut down for a day in protest. But it's believed it's the only way to pressure government to show how important their industry is and how costly and damaging the tax rise could be.
So when the 4 courses or races were scheduled fall silent, jockeys, trainers and bosses will instead converge on Westminster to warn of the risks to racing if Rachel Reeves gambles with their futures to balance the books. Rob Harris, Sky News, Windsor.
Staying with sport, Rob is here for a look at football. A surprise that Nottingham Forest parted company with Nuno Espirito Santo. First of all, let's deal with that and then go to part 2, who they've replaced him with.
Yeah, I mean, you could say it was a surprise in the sense that if you look at Nottingham Forest results on the field, he has completely transformed their fortunes. Nuno Espirito Santo took over with them fighting for relegation a couple of seasons ago. He kept them up. Fast forward to last season, they were only 1 win away from a place in the Champions League. They spent much of the season inside the top 4. The results were excellent and he'd done a brilliant job. But his relationship had deteriorated with, let's call him a volatile owner in Evangelos Marinakis. It was off the field that was the problem. Technically on the field in a game against Leicester last year, towards the end of the season, that Forest drew 2-2, that the owner marched onto the field. There was quite a clear confrontation. Before the first game of the season, he was asked about his relationship with the owner, and he said, it's not as good as it used to be. The warning bells began to sound. There were a lot of rumours about his relationship with Edu, and I think they're the reasons why Nuno has lost his job.
But they didn't waste any time, did they? Because we've just seen the return of Big Ange.
Big Ange is back.
Nottingham Forest. There he is.
There he is, in a slightly frustrated pose, which he adopted for large parts of last season. Having said that, he delivered a trophy. You might remember right back at the start of last season, Ange Postecoglou, after a defeat for Tottenham in the Premier League, said, in my second season at a club, I deliver trophies. What did he do? He won the Europa League.
Made history,
come the end of the campaign. Having said that, towards the end of the season, the second half of last season, their Premier League form was awful. After the turn of the year, they won just 4 of their Premier League games, 2 of those against sides that had been relegated. So maybe in the league there is a bit of a point to prove. He will say he sort of chucked off the league to focus on the Europa League. But Evangelos Marinakis speaks about winning trophies. That is what Ange Postecoglou does. So we will see how he fares. He starts nice for a former Spurs manager to start against Arsenal. That is to come. Let's have a look at the rest of the day's sport.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
club made a great pitch to me, that they wanted me. They gave me a 4-year contract. All the stops were out. They made me feel really welcome.
We arrived at the airport there in Madrid, and there were 50, 30, 40, 50 journalists, cameras, and we thought, oh, they come for this movie star, you know. Suddenly we see, Jesus Christ, Jimmy, it's for you.
It's always difficult losing a great player. Jimmy, for me, was always a world-class striker. Probably.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
That's all from the UK tonight. We are back with a special edition tomorrow night from Birmingham after the immigration debate at 7 o'clock. Up next is The World with Yalda Hakim. She'll have the latest on that Israeli strike on Doha.